August 21st was the day Unstable SMP almost ended, and it all started with a pot. Wemmbu was in the middle of a normal fight when Connection, also known as Sharpness, placed the pot and stole one of Wembu's maces, and escaped before Wembu could do anything about it. A stolen mace on the server is not a small problem. Maces are one of the rarest weapons left in existence after Clompius destroyed every ominous troll vault, meaning whatever maces still exist in player hands are the last ones that will ever be made. This stolen mace marked the beginning of the end, because everything that happens later on, the Farlands, the ghost players, the golden temple, the orbital strike cannons, all of it starts right here. Wembu asked around trying to find Sharpness, and most people had nothing useful, until he found 4C Vit, who told him that Sharpness had actually commissioned him to build a pole cannon. 4C Vit took Wembu and Achan to the cannon and fired them straight to the beginning of the Farlands, 12 million blocks from spawn, one of the most remote and unpredictable places on the entire server. What's out here is genuinely strange. Firework rockets stopped working entirely, their ender chest came back empty, and the terrain started glitching in ways that normal Minecraft simply doesn't produce. Broken structures, chunks of every biome stacked next to each other, repeating patterns of the same buildings over and over like the world was trying to copy itself and failing. They found Sharpness near Farland City, and the two of them fought inside a barely intact building, with Sharpness breach swapping while Wembu tried to close the distance. Wembu grabbed spare TNT to blow the house apart and give himself more room, and the fight moved underground into a confined tunnel where Sharpness nearly killed him before Achan helped him get out. Sharpness left. They found him again later, fought again, and this time Wembu maced him towards the void, and Sharpness missed his pole catch. Wembu, knowing the mace would be lost if Sharpness died, used a fishing rod to save him and keep the fight going. He asked for the mace back. Sharpness told him he'd hand it over when Wembu did something with it, then broke his ender chest and left the game. This happened twice. Keep this in mind because Sharpness was clearly looking for something from Wembu beyond just a fight, and what he wanted would only become clear much later. But before any of that, do you want to join Unstable SMP and fight like Wembu? Well, I recently partnered with a few creators to create a brand new Unstable server, where every kill gives you 10 coins, and with these coins, you can upgrade your kit to become the strongest player of the Unstable SMP, Wembu. It has a bunch of kits inspired by your favorite Unstable SMP members, with the best kit having fireworks and an elytra. So if that interests you, join my server unstableworld.net. Anyways, back to the video. Between fights, Wembu and Achan stumbled onto something that stopped both of them completely. A fully intact version of the Zam Empire sitting in the Farlands. Not destroyed, not abandoned, just there frozen in time. And inside it, ghost players who looked exactly like Pangi, Mainpat, Flamefrags, Sorhin, and Prince Zam, going through the motions of ranking up inside a civilization that hadn't existed in a long time. Wembu punched one of them and checked if they were real, and his hand went straight through. These weren't players, they were echoes, recordings of things that already happened, replaying in a dimension that sits at the edge of the world. The Farlands isn't just a remote location, it's something the server has been doing with its own history, and Wembu and Achan were the first people to see it. They continued exploring and got attacked by a group calling themselves the Avengers, which turned out to be a collection of Wembu's actual past enemies. Flamefrags, Spongs, Wilson, Jadenman, Will, Fans, and Bloblu, all showing up together specifically to deal with him. Wembu hid until Fans found him, then escaped before the rest could close in. The Avengers gave up and left, but the situation made it very clear that Wembu was in the Farlands with no reliable gear, no ender chest, and an active group of enemies who knew where he was. But you know what is reliable? The subscribe button! See, unlike your girlfriend, the subscribe button would never cheat on you. So if you subscribe, I'll be one subscriber closer to my goal of 100k by the end of 2026. Anyways, back to the video. Eventually, they found a new biome, spiky mountains rising out of gravel terrain, and at the center of it, a giant golden temple with 5 enormous statues standing along the path to the entrance. Inside the temple were 2 real players, not ghosts, and wemmbu confirmed it by punching them, then immediately robbed them for food and resources. One of them told him something important, that a player named Lifesteal had items from something called the Forge, and would hand them over if wemmbu beat him in a fight. The Forge had been mentioned before in passing, and now it had a location attached to it. Lifesteal woke up and the fight started. A massive pit opened underneath them and they fought inside it, and things were going normally until Lifesteal handed wemmbu golden apples and XP bottles to man his armor mid-fight. Wemmbu took them without fully understanding why, and then Lifesteal started firing orbital strikes at him. Not a single cannon, a barrage of them, landing one after another in a way that should not be possible given the normal delay on orbital fire. Wemmbu survived it, restocked, and kept fighting. Eventually, Lifesteal gave up, unable to fire any more orbital shots, and let Wemmbu kill him. Wemmbu looted him and Master Wu, the player who had introduced him to the temple, and walked away with whatever they had been carrying. The fight with the Avengers happened again after the temple, with slightly weaker composition this time since Sharpness, Flame, and Jaden were absent. It turned chaotic fast, with Sharpness and Will suddenly fighting each other while also fighting wemmbu, and then flamefrags getting jumped by the same group, giving wemmbu the opening to temporarily team with them to survive. Acheron handed over shulkers from their secret hideout to gear both of them up, and Flame eventually gave wemmbu back his stolen mace, telling him he didn't need it. After the fight cleared, wemmbu told Acheron they weren't leaving the Farlands yet, because the Forge was still out there and he intended to find it. The next major discovery came through Acheron, who had been quietly exploring Lifesteal's room in the city while wemmbu was dealing with other things, and found a puzzle hidden inside it. Solving the puzzle gave him a lodestone compass, and they followed it back into the Farlands until they found something that changed everything. A repeating array of orbital strike cannons, dozens of them, lined up in a pattern that only exists in this part of the world. This was how Lifesteal had been firing multiple strikes in rapid succession during their fight, using a tick rate machine that bypassed the normal delay by accelerating everything around the cannon simultaneously. The Farlands, with its duplicating terrain and broken physics, had created conditions where orbital fire worked in a way that isn't possible anywhere else on the server. Wemmbu tested it with Acheron's help, setting up a stasis chamber and reducing his render distance to minimum so the chunks would load correctly, activating the tick rate machine and pulling the fishing rod trigger. The test worked. Wemmbu now had access to the same weapon system that Lifesteal had used against him, and it was sitting in a dimension most players didn't even know existed. Serpentbound, GG Gamer, and Nittonly showed up just as they were finishing the test. Wemmbu told Serpentbound the cannons were the Forge. Serpentbound said no, and that he actually knew where the Forge was. He led them to Lifesteal's room in the city, up a staircase to an end portal. He told Wemmbu the Forge was through it. GG Gamer raised the punch bow during the conversation, and Acheron saw it just before it fired. The arrow hit Acheron instead of Wemmbu and sent him through the end portal, and the whole thing turned out to be a trap. Wemmbu fought Nittonly and GG Gamer, killed GG Gamer, and Nittonly escaped with Firestar. Serpentbound, outnumbered now, offered to work something out. Wemmbu told him to set the orbital cannons. Serpentbound took him back to the end portal and pushed him through. Wemmbu was back at spawn, and that's the moment the server should have started panicking, because Wemmbu came back with access to an orbital strike cannon that fires faster than anything anyone on unstable SMP has ever dealt with, built from a location nobody else can reach, using terrain physics that don't exist anywhere near spawn. Remember at the very start when Sharpness stole that mace with a pot, that one stolen weapon sent Wemmbu to the Farlands, which led him to Lifesteal, which led him to the cannons. One pot, that's the whole chain. What he did with the cannons tells you exactly where his head was after everything that happened out there. He went straight to Capital City, looking for flamefrags. cornered a player near a lamppost, and when they told him only Radoons knew where Flame was and there was a queue, wemmbu used a stab shot and made the queue irrelevant. He was taken to Radoon's office, found Serpic instead, fired another nuke into part of the city just to communicate he was serious, and got the information he needed. Flamefrags had gone southwest to the Law. At the Law's base, Lattice K sent a group of new players in iron and leather to stop him. wemmbu used a single nuke shot and ended the entire group at once. Lattice K told him Flame was probably a Jaden man's base. wemmbu destroyed the rest of the Law city before he left, specifically so they wouldn't be in a position to hunt him afterward. At Jaden's castle, wemmbu asked where Flamefrags was, blew up part of the building, and went through chests and barrels while Jaden tried to help. The rain started, Jaden attacked with his mace and Riptide Trident, and the conversation stopped being about Flame and became about Jaden's mace. When the rain stopped, the fight ended. Jaden dropped the bucket and ran. wemmbu followed Jaden's advice to check Flame's abandoned base instead, killed a player named Treeleaf 2021 who tried to make him do a scavenger hunt, found a compass named Flamefrags with nothing else around it, and followed it. The compass led to an old Mafia stash wemmbu had raided during his training with Mainpad, and he waited on the pillar until Flamefrags appeared. He told Flame he was no longer the strongest player and that he was about to take that title. They fought across the terrain, wound up in an ancient city where wardens attacked both of them, pushed back out, and kept going. wemmbu broke Flame's chestplate, kept hitting him with stab shots, and eventually Flamefrags was done. wemmbu taunted him for hiding, told him he would never be the strongest player again, and stood on the same pillar he had waited on before the fight started. That's how unstable SMP almost ended on this day. Anyways, bye bye!